Rita Ora, the unstoppable force. The lights dim, the bass kicks in, and a voice that feels both like silk and sandpaper fills the arena. To many, she is a global fashion icon, a television personality, and a chart-topping powerhouse. But behind the glitz of the red carpets and the flashes of the paparazzi lies a story of survival, displacement, and an unwavering ambition that started long before the world knew her name. This is not just the story of a pop star, it is the story of a refugee who redefined what it means to be a modern British icon. This is the journey of Rita Ora. Our story begins in 1990 in the city of Pristina, the capital of what was then Yugoslavia, now Kosovo. Rita Sahiciu was born on November 26 to Albanian parents, Vera and Besnik Sahiciu. Her surname, Sahiciu, actually translates to watchmaker in Turkish, a nod to her family's ancestral trade. However, as the political climate in the Balkans began to darken and the threat of war loomed, her parents made a choice that would change the course of history for their family. In 1991, when Rita was just a year old, they fled Kosovo. They weren't looking for fame, they were looking for safety. They landed in London, settling in the vibrant, multicultural neighborhood of Notting Hill. It was here that Rita's father, Besnik, added Ora to the family name, meaning hour in Albanian, simply because it was easier for people in England to pronounce. Growing up in West London wasn't a fairy tale of luxury. The family lived in a modest flat and her parents worked tirelessly to build a life from scratch. Her mother, Vera, a psychiatrist in Kosovo, had to learn English and retrain to work in the medical field while her father bought a local pub. This pub would become the first stage Rita ever knew. While other children were playing with dolls, Rita was watching the local characters in her father's pub, soaking in the sounds of soul, jazz, and rock that played from the jukebox. Music wasn't just a hobby for young Rita, it was a sanctuary. She attended the Sylvia Young Theatre School, a prestigious institution that has polished the talents of stars like Amy Winehouse. Even then, teachers noticed something different about her. She didn't just sing notes, she told stories with her voice. Her early influences were eclectic. She was obsessed with the vocal gymnastics of Beyoncé and Christina Aguilera, but she also felt a deep connection to the raw, honest delivery of Gwen Stefani and the punk rock attitude of Blondie. This mix of street and glam would later become her signature style. By the age of 14, Rita began performing at open mic nights around London. She would often sneak into her father's pub to sing for the regulars. It was during one of these early sessions that she was spotted by a scout. This led to her first professional recording, a song called Awkward with Craig David in 2007. It was a small taste of the industry, but it confirmed one thing: Rita Ora was meant for the spotlight. In 2009, a 19-year-old Rita saw an opportunity that many young British singers dream of: Eurovision. She auditioned for Eurovision, Your Country Needs You, a competition to represent the UK. She performed Get Here by Ulta Adams, and the judges, including the legendary Andrew Lloyd Webber, were floored. She was a frontrunner, but then something unexpected happened. Rita dropped out of the competition. In her own words later in life, she admitted that she felt the Eurovision path wasn't right for the artist she wanted to become. She didn't want to be a manufactured pop product, she wanted to find a sound that felt authentic to her Notting Hill roots. It was a massive gamble. Turning down a national television platform is often career suicide for a newcomer. But for Rita, it was the first sign of her fierce independence. She went back to performing in pubs, back to recording demos, waiting for the right door to open. The gamble paid off sooner than anyone expected. Her manager at the time had been sending her demos to anyone who would listen. One of those demos landed on the desk of an executive at Roc Nation, the label founded by the hip-hop mogul Jay-Z. The story goes that Sarah Stennett, her manager, pushed for Rita to fly to New York. In December 2009, Rita Ora stepped off a plane in America with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. Within 48 hours of arriving, she was sitting in a room with Jay-Z. She sang for him right there, live, no microphone, no backing track. Jay-Z, who had famously discovered Rihanna only a few years prior, saw the same spark in Rita. He signed her to the label the very next day. The world was about to change for the girl from Pristina. But the road to her debut album wouldn't be as fast or as easy as she hoped. After signing that life-changing contract in 2009, Rita didn't become a household name overnight. In fact, she spent nearly 2 years in what many artists call the development phase. She moved to New York, living in a small apartment, spending 10 to 12 hours a day in recording studios. This was a period of intense pressure. She was the new protege of Jay-Z, and the comparisons to Rihanna were immediate and relentless. During this time, Rita was experimenting. She recorded hundreds of songs, working with top-tier producers like Will, I.A.M., Stargate, and The Dream. She was trying to find a balance between her love for Gwen Stefani's pop-punk energy and the polished R&B sound that Rock Nation was known for. It was a period of frustration but also growth. She was learning the business of music, how to carry herself in interviews, how to command a room, and how to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment finally arrived in early 2012, but it didn't come from a solo track. It came from a collaboration with British drum and bass producer DJ Fresh. The song was Hot Right Now. When the track dropped in February 2012, it didn't just climb the charts, it detonated. Rita's husky, powerful vocals over the high-energy D and B beat captured the zeitgeist of the London club scene. The song debuted at #1 on the UK singles chart. Suddenly, the girl who had been waiting in the wings in New York was the most talked-about artist in Britain. But Rita knew she couldn't rely on being a featured artist. She needed to prove she could lead the pack. Only a few months later, she released R.I.P. featuring Tinny Tempa. Written by Drake and produced by Chase and Status, the song was a masterclass in pop dubstep fusion. It went straight to #1. She followed this with How We Do Party, a feel-good anthem that paid homage to Notting Hill's carnival spirit. That too went to #1. In a single year, Rita Ora achieved what most artists don't achieve in a decade: 3 consecutive #1 singles. By the time her debut album, titled simply Ora, was released in August 2012, she was already a phenomenon. The album debuted at the top of the charts, and the Ora era had officially begun. One thing that separated Rita from her peers early on was her visual identity. She wasn't just wearing what a stylist told her to, she was creating a brand. With her signature bleached blonde hair and bold red lipstick, a look she maintains to this day, she became a favorite of the fashion world. Designers like Karl Lagerfeld and Jeremy Scott saw in her a street luxe aesthetic that felt fresh. In 2013, she became the face of Madonna's clothing line, Material Girl. Shortly after, she signed a long-term partnership with Adidas, a deal that would eventually see her designing her own collections. For Rita, fashion wasn't a distraction from music, it was an extension of it. She understood that in the age of Instagram and 24-hour media, a pop star had to be a lifestyle. She was appearing on the covers of Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar while simultaneously headlining festivals like Glastonbury. She was everywhere. As 2014 approached, Rita began to expand her empire even further. She realized that her personality, candid, funny, and deeply relatable, was a commodity of its own. She joined the coaching panel of The Voice UK for its 4th series. Watching her on screen, audiences saw a different side of Rita. She wasn't just the it girl in the magazines, she was a knowledgeable musician who cared deeply about vocal technique and the struggles of new artists. Her chemistry with fellow coaches like Tom Jones and Will I Am made her a fan favorite. This move into television was strategic. It ensured that even during the gaps between albums, Rita Ora remained a central figure in the public consciousness. However, behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. While her public life looked perfect, her relationship with her record label, Rock Nation, was beginning to sour. The girl who had been signed in a whirlwind 48 hours was about to enter a legal battle that would threaten to silence her voice for years. By 2015, on the surface, Rita Ora was at the top of her game. She was a household name, a fashion icon, and a television star. But behind the scenes, there was a growing, painful silence: her music. It had been years since her debut album, and while she had released successful singles like I Will Never Let You Down, a second album was nowhere to be found. Rita felt orphaned by her label, Rock Nation. As the company expanded into sports management and other ventures, Rita felt the personal attention she was promised had evaporated. In December 2015, she took a move that many called career suicide. She sued one of the most powerful men in music, Jay-Z, and his label. She cited California's 7-year rule, arguing that her contract should be unenforceable because it had lasted longer than 7 years. Roc Nation fired back with a $2.4 million countersuit, claiming she hadn't delivered the required number of albums. For a musician, being in legal limbo is a nightmare. She couldn't release new music, she couldn't record with certain producers. She was, essentially, a singer who wasn't allowed to sing. Many artists would have faded away during such a legal battle, but Rita Ora is a survivalist. If she couldn't release music, she would conquer the silver screen. This period saw her transition into a serious actress, a move that surprised many critics. Her biggest breakthrough came when she was cast as Mia Gray, the sister of Christian Grey, in the global phenomenon 50 Shades of Grey. While her role was relatively small in the first film, her presence was undeniable. She committed to the franchise, appearing in all 3 installments. But it wasn't just about blockbusters. Rita wanted to prove her range. She took a gritty role in the boxing drama Southpaw, directed by Anton Fuqua and starring Jake Gyllenhaal. To prepare for the role of a drug addict, Rita spent time in shelters and worked closely with the director to strip away her pop star persona. This was a turning point. It showed the industry that she wasn't just a celebrity, she was a performer who wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. While the courts were deciding her musical future, Rita doubled down on her television career. In 2015, Simon Cowell lured her away from The Voice to join the judging panel of the X Factor UK. It was a massive deal, reportedly worth millions. On the X Factor, Rita proved she had an eye for talent. She didn't just judge, she mentored. Her girls category was the strongest of the season, and she eventually led her contestant, Louisa Johnson, to victory. This win solidified Rita's status as the Midas of British television. Everything she touched turned to gold. In 2016, she crossed the Atlantic to host the revived America's Next Top Model, taking over the iconic role previously held by Tyra Banks. This was a strategic masterstroke. It kept her face on television screens in the United States, ensuring that when she eventually returned to music, the American audience hadn't forgotten who she was. In May 2016, the news the fans had been waiting for finally broke. Rita Ora and Roc Nation had reached a settlement. They parted ways amicably, and Rita was finally a free agent. Within weeks, she signed a new global recording deal with Atlantic Records. The pressure was immense. The music industry moves fast, and 4 years had passed since her first album. Many wondered if she could still command the charts. Rita's response was a song that would define the next chapter of her life. Your Song. Co-written with her longtime friend Ed Sheeran, Your Song was a departure from the heavy electronic beats of her past. It was stripped back, melodic, and showcased the maturity in her voice. Released in mid-2017, it became a massive hit, proving that the public's appetite for Rita Ora had only grown during her absence. But it was the follow-up single, Anywhere, that truly signaled her return to the throne. The song's melancholic lyrics about wanting to escape, paired with a soaring pop drop, resonated with millions. It became one of the most played songs of the year. Rita wasn't just back, she was better than ever. She began working on her second studio album, a project she would aptly name Phoenix, a symbol of her rising from the ashes of her legal struggles. This is Part 4, The Phoenix Era and the Global Ambassador. In this section, we witness the peak of Rita's musical achievements, her record-breaking success in the United Kingdom, and her deep-rooted commitment to her homeland, Kosovo. Rita Ora, The Unstoppable Force, Part 4, Chapter 13, The Rebirth, the Success of Phoenix. In November 2018, 6 years after her debut, Rita Ora finally released her second studio album, Phoenix. The title was no coincidence. It represented a woman who had been through the fires of the legal system, the scrutiny of the tabloids, and the pressures of the industry, only to emerge stronger. The album was a masterclass in modern pop. It wasn't just a collection of songs, it was a diary of her journey during those silent years. Tracks like Lonely Together, her haunting collaboration with the late Avicii showed a more vulnerable side to her artistry. The song became a global anthem, but it also carried a heavy emotional weight following Avicii's passing, a loss that Rita spoke about with great sensitivity and grace. Phoenix proved that Rita didn't need a machine to tell her what to do. She had co-written much of the material, ensuring that the sound was a true reflection of her soul. The album was certified gold in the UK and produced a string of hits that would cement her place in music history. While many focus on her celebrity status, it is important to look at the numbers because the numbers don't lie. During the Phoenix era, Rita Ora achieved something that no other British female artist had ever done. With the release of Let You Love Me, Rita earned her 13th top 10 single in the United Kingdom. This officially broke the record for the most top 10 singles by a British female solo artist, a record previously held by legends like Shirley Bassey and Petula Clark. This wasn't just a win for Rita, it was a win for a new generation of women in the UK music scene. It proved that longevity was possible, even after long breaks and legal battles. She wasn't just a one-hit wonder or a social media star, she was a chart-dominant force that the British public genuinely loved. Her voice had become the soundtrack to a decade. Despite the global fame, Rita never forgot the girl who fled Pristina in her mother's arms. As her platform grew, so did her sense of responsibility toward her heritage. In 2015, she was named an honorary ambassador of the Republic of Kosovo by the then-president Adifet Jajaga. This wasn't just a title for her, it was a mission. Rita became the face of a nation that was still struggling to define itself on the world stage. She filmed the music video for Shine Ya Light in Pristina, bringing international attention to the beauty and resilience of her people. She also became a prominent advocate for UNICEF, focusing on refugee rights and children's education in conflict zones. In her speeches, she often reminded the world that she, too, was a refugee. She used her story to humanize the statistics, showing that with opportunity and safety, a child from a war-torn region could grow up to change the world. This work added a layer of depth to her persona that went far beyond the glamorous pop star image. The Phoenix era was also defined by her ability to collaborate across genres. She wasn't afraid to step into different worlds. One of her most successful partnerships was with Liam Payne for the song For You, the lead single from the 50 Shades Freed soundtrack. The song was a massive commercial success, blending Rita's powerhouse vocals with a cinematic pop sound. It showcased her ability to deliver a big vocal performance that felt at home on both a movie screen and a dance floor. Shortly after, she teamed up with Cardi B, Bebe Rexha, and Charli XCX for Girls, a song that celebrated female empowerment and fluid identity. While the song sparked debate, it highlighted Rita's willingness to push boundaries and start conversations that others might shy away from. By the end of 2019, Rita Ora was no longer just a British singer. She was a global brand, a diplomat, and a record breaker. But as the world moved into 2020, a new set of challenges was waiting, challenges that would test her resilience in ways she never expected. As 2020 dawned, Rita Ora was prepared for a massive world tour to support Phoenix. Like the rest of the world, her plans were brought to a grinding halt by the COVID-19 pandemic. For an artist who thrives on energy, live performance, and constant movement, the lockdown was a period of forced introspection. During this time, Rita remained active in the humanitarian space. She collaborated with the World Health Organization (WHO) to launch the One World, Together at Home campaign, raising funds for frontline workers. However, the period was not without its struggles. Like many public figures, she faced intense scrutiny and a cancel culture moment following a breach of lockdown protocols for her 30th birthday. For Rita, this was a moment of deep learning. She apologized sincerely, took responsibility, and retreated from the spotlight to refocus on what mattered most, her craft and her mental health. It was a reminder that even for a phoenix, the journey involves navigating through smoke as well as fire. In early 2021, Rita made a bold move. She packed her bags and moved to Sydney, Australia to join the coaching panel of The Voice Australia. What was intended to be a temporary job turned into a creative rebirth. Australia embraced Rita with open arms, and she found herself inspired by the laid-back, creative atmosphere of the Southern Hemisphere. While in Sydney, she didn't just film television, she worked on a unique musical project. She teamed up with Kazakh DJ and producer Imanbek to create the EP titled Bang. This project was a departure from her standard pop sound, leaning into global club sounds and experimental dance music. The lead single, Big, featuring David Guetta and Gunna, became a global club anthem. Bang proved that Rita could create music on her own terms, collaborating across borders even when the world was closed. While Australia gave Rita a new professional spark, it also gave her something far more profound: a soulmate. In 2021, rumors began to swirl about Rita's relationship with the Oscar-winning filmmaker Taika Waititi. The two had been friends for years, but the quiet moments of the pandemic allowed that friendship to blossom into a deep, transformative romance. Their relationship was a breath of fresh air for Rita. After years of having her private life picked apart by tabloids, she found a partner who matched her eccentricity, her humor, and her work ethic. They became the it couple of the creative world, appearing on red carpets at the Met Gala and movie premieres, always with a sense of playfulness that suggested they were in on a secret the rest of the world didn't know. In a private, intimate ceremony in 2022, Rita and Taika were married. For the girl who had spent a decade singing about heartbreak and searching for the one, this was a full-circle moment. Her happiness began to bleed into her work, leading to a sound that was softer, more confident, and deeply romantic. As Rita entered this new chapter of her life, she made the most significant business decision of her career. After her long struggle with Roc Nation and her successful run with Atlantic, she decided it was time for true independence. In 2022, she signed a new partnership with BMG. This wasn't a standard record deal, it was a deal that allowed her to own her master recordings. In the modern music industry, where artists like Taylor Swift have fought hard for ownership, this was a massive victory for Rita. It meant that for the first time, she truly owned her voice. This freedom led to her third studio album, You and I, released in 2023. The album is essentially a musical love letter. From the upbeat Fatboy Slim sampling praising you to the deeply personal title track, You and I showcased a woman who was no longer trying to prove herself to the charts. She was making music for herself. She co-wrote every single track on the album, creating a diary of her marriage, her growth, and her peace of mind. Rita Ora had transitioned from a pop puppet to a pop mogul. She was now a woman who controlled her music, her brand, and her future. As we move into 2024, Rita Ora achieved a milestone that many performers only dream of, becoming a Disney villain. In the musical film Descendants, The Rise of Red, Rita took on the iconic role of the Queen of Hearts. For Rita, who grew up attending musical theater school, this wasn't just another acting job, it was a return to her DNA. She described the role as liberating. Known for her warm and bubbly personality, playing a ruthless, off-with-their-heads tyrant allowed her to explore a theatrical darkness she hadn't shown before. But the true highlight for Rita was her co-star, the R&B legend Brandy. Rita had spent her childhood in London trying to imitate Brandy's vocal runs in her bedroom. Now she was sharing the screen with her idol. The film allowed Rita to flex her triple threat muscles, singing, dancing, and acting in a high-budget musical. She even took the time to master real card-handling tricks from a magician on set, a small detail that shows her dedication to the craft. The soundtrack, featuring the hit Love Ain't It, introduced Rita to a whole new generation of younger fans, ensuring her longevity in the pop culture landscape. While the film world was buzzing about her Disney debut, Rita was quietly preparing her most personal business venture to date. In April 2024, she launched Type B, pronounced Type B, a high-performance, inclusive haircare line. This wasn't just a celebrity branding exercise. Rita's inspiration came from her childhood in London, watching her mother Vera work in a hair salon. She saw firsthand how a woman's confidence could be transformed by the way she cared for herself. After years of bleaching, styling, and damaging her own hair for the stage, Rita wanted to create a product that actually worked for all hair types, from coily and curly to straight and thin. By focusing on scalp health and hair growth, Typia positioned Rita as a serious player in the beauty industry. She wasn't just the face of a brand anymore, she was a founder and an entrepreneur, joining the ranks of women like Rihanna and Selena Gomez who have redefined the celebrity-to-mogul pipeline. Rita's television dominance continued to bridge the gap between the UK and the US. In 2024 and 2025, she became a permanent fixture on the American version of The Masked Singer, filling the seat previously held by Nicole Scherzinger. Her ability to identify voices and her genuine excitement for the performers made her an instant hit with the American audience. Rita's career is unique in this way. She is one of the few celebrities who can maintain A-list status in two major markets simultaneously. Whether she is in London for a Fashion Week event or in Los Angeles for a taping, her work ethic remains relentless. This period proved that she is no longer just a pop star but a world-class television personality with a global reach. In mid-2025, Rita reminded the world that music is still her primary heartbeat. She released the sun-soaked, bold anthem Heat, followed by rumors of a stripped-back, more personal track titled All Natural. In recent interviews, Rita has spoken about a shift in her perspective. She described her career as having been outwards for many years, focusing on film, TV, and brand building. Now, as she looks toward 2026, she is going inwards. She has announced a new studio album and her first major world tour since 2018. One of the most exciting projects on her horizon is a fly-on-the-wall documentary featuring 8 years of personal footage. Rita has been filming herself behind the scenes since 2017, capturing the legal battles, the recording sessions, the private moments of her wedding, and the chaos of life on the road. This documentary promises to be the most honest look at her life yet, stripping away the glamour to show the grit required to stay at the top. As we conclude this part of her journey, we must look at her impact on the world. Before Rita Ora, it was rare for an artist from the Balkans to achieve global, mainstream success. Today, the charts are filled with names like Dua Lipa, Bebe Rexha, and Ava Max. While the media often tries to create rivalries between these women, Rita has always maintained a stance of sisterhood and pride. She opened the door. She showed that a refugee child from Kosovo could not only participate in the global music industry but dominate it. Her legacy is one of resilience. She survived being displaced by war, she survived a legal battle that could have ended her career, and she emerged not just as a survivor but as a winner. Rita Ora is no longer just a singer from West London. She is a symbol of the modern, independent artist, a woman who owns her voice, her master recordings, and her destiny.